We laugh. We cry. We learn. But really, what doesn't kill you makes you better at managing clients and everyone. I'm Morgan Friedman, and this is Client Horror Stories.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest episode of Client Horror Stories. I'm very excited to have the one and only Paul Sweeney with me today. How are you doing, Paul?
Excellent. Excited. Well, I don't know if I'm excited to share my horror story, but I'm excited to be here.
It could be a bit cathartic. Let's see how it goes. Since these sessions tend to be alcohol infused, what are you drinking today?
Well, I think given the time of the day, and we've spoken as we've met before a bit about the Irish heritage, so I've gone with the Kilkenny today. So that's what I'll be consuming as we talk, or drowning my sorrows as I remember the horror of this experience. So, yeah.
You know, I love that intro. And let's get right into the horror. Tell us about the story. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Oh, look, I believe what's probably the worst part about this, and I think a lot of people will go through this experience thinking, I should have known better. And I think really for me, so my background is I'm an accountant, and I was working with clients. I was actually in the transition between two businesses at the time. So I was probably a little bit distracted at the time, because I was leaving one business relationship and starting afresh myself. And I got caught up in doing something for a client that, when you sit back and you think about how you should behave and how you should react, and the pre-vetting you should do, none of that actually happened. So I ended up on this pretty much a fast-paced roller coaster ride with this client that I'd been dealing with for a number of years.
I'm excited. I just want to interrupt for a second. The alcohol is already getting to me, which is, I love this saying, hindsight is 20/20.
Yep.
And even when I look at my own mistakes, I'm like, I can't believe that wasn't obvious to me. And I think you just have to go through a lot of pain in order for the obvious to become obvious.
Oh, yeah, I think so. Looking back, it's so much easier. But at the time, you're thinking, okay, well, all right, I'm starting this new business. Okay, this is a big opportunity. So it was a big opportunity for a client. They were about to raise a lot of money with a view to becoming a public company. A lot of opportunity, a lot of people, a lot of excitement, capital investors involved, urgency, and timing was just not very good for me because I was in that transition phase. But they needed everything urgently. So they sort of said, great, okay, we want you to come on board, and we want you to be our CFO and outsource CFO, but we want you to hit the ground running. And yes, you'll get paid, and there's a lot of money coming involved. And I thought, great, okay, that's fantastic. That sounds just what I need when I'm starting a new business. I need this big injection of revenue.
Yes.
But then, hang on, if I'm going to be spending all this time doing that, I'm going to need somebody else to be working on my other clients as well. So I'm going to need to hire somebody quickly.
Right.
So I hired quickly. And things started going very fast. Okay, I was already set up with new titles, email addresses, computers, introductions. But there were a couple of core things missing. There's no contract. There's no engagement. So they hadn't got their HR systems right. So they said, "Oh, who do we know about HR?" And I said, "Can you find someone?"
I just want to comment on that, which is, you're starting your own business, and something I found among entrepreneurs, people that start small businesses, is you tend to get so excited. You're like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be so much fun!" You don't even step back to think about the full consequences and so it's like the other side of the coin, because it's really beautiful to get excited. So many people could care less, and it's great that you got so excited.
Yeah, look, I was excited, and look, part of there was a dilemma. Okay, do I get an employment contract? Because that's not really where I'm at. But they hadn't got their HR systems involved because they were waiting for me to advise on that. On the other side, from the accounting business side, I didn't have my engagement letter ready to go. And part of it was I was still in this transition and I was still waiting for registrations and licensing to come through under the new business. So I was in this sort of period where I was sort of in between and not able to really fully act. So unfortunately, because of the pace of things, I got caught up. I got swept up into this, I guess, the madness is how I describe it. Flurry of activity. Everything had to be done urgently, quickly. And a lot of things got rushed, and including contracts.
I just want to say it's hard to resist that. Even if wait, we should sign a contract when, oh my God, this is going to happen. So many things are going to happen. You're just so excited. It's this sort of self-discipline is difficult.
It is. And particularly where I think you've known somebody for a long time. Okay. So there is that element of trust there. And that and again, that hindsight, that's a dangerous thing. Trust does not mean a written contract. Trust, the promise of a contract is not a contract. The promise of a sale is not a sale.
That is an excellent point. The promise of a sale is not a sale.
Yeah. And so I was promised this and everything looked fine. I was involved with some of the meetings with some of the high levels, the C-suite, involved with the capital investors, providing the information, and things started going well. But then the few of the bits and pieces were missing from the equation. So, it seemed almost like everybody was too keen to move forward, but it's all like they'd all jumped on the train engine, but forgot to connect the carriages behind them. That's how fast we were keen to get going. So everybody was on board. Everybody's on board. Full train, full steam ahead. They're shoveling the coal. We're moving fast, but we've left the carriages at the station, and somehow we've got to go back and get them. But in doing so, that's when things got a bit worse. In remembering that, okay, we've moved forward quickly, but we've forgotten these things. We have to go back. And it's always harder to fix something after the event than to do it properly in the first place. And we got caught up, and there's so many things. So mine was not the only contract missing. And what we found out was there were a number of verbal promises given in this arrangement, not backed up by contracts. And so all of a sudden the warning bells are starting to go, well, hang on, what has everybody been promised here? And I thought, well, hang on, if everybody gets what they've been promised, we're going to run out of money very quickly. We're not even going to last 3 months because everybody seemed to think that they had been promised this great package. But the reality of it was there was, the cash flow didn't match what everybody had been promised. And with nobody having contracts, it started to sort of think there were a few cracks and a few conversations starting to get a bit heated about, okay, well, hang on, why are you getting that? And I was promised this, and I should be doing this, and I should be in on this meeting, but why are you not there? And I'm sort of there as the outside, well, sort of brought in because I felt like I was brought in after the event. And I always think if I'm there at the beginning, I can advise them on the right path and say, but I've come in, it's running very fast. Like I said, the engine's left the station, but the carriages are still there, trying to put things back together.
Okay, so question, this sort of situation, when I'm trying to map it out in my mind, I could see it being done under like where the people doing it are kind of malicious or kind of taking advantage of everyone, but I could also see it being not malicious, but purely incompetent, like not even adding up the numbers and thinking about it. And how would you balance it in this situation?
I would say that at the beginning, everybody had very good intentions. But as soon as something doesn't go right, that's when the character behind some of these, the true character starts to come to the surface. And it was at that point that what became obvious was a couple of the parties involved, brought in for their respective skill sets, didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And when they didn't see eye to eye on a lot of things started to get a bit heated. The disagreements became a lot more public, and it sort of swelled out and started to involve other people. So other people started then thinking, hey, hang on, where's my piece of the pie? Why is this not happening to me? Or why am I not getting this benefit? And hang on, I haven't actually been paid yet. So what's going on here?
I see. So people had different promises and different, let's say, compensations or expected compensations, including some getting paid now, some maybe later, and so on. And when people started to feel uncomfortable about it, some people basically made it public. So everyone then realized, wait a minute, he's getting this. How come I'm not? Which then made it escalate even more.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely. Absolutely. And it became very obvious quickly that, okay, a lot of the necessary steps right at the beginning had just been completely ignored. Or yeah, everybody got really excited about, oh, we're raising money, we're going to be launching the product. But they didn't do a lot of the basic steps. And then what we found was they'd moved forward too quickly, and we had to go backwards and get some legal structure fixed. And of course, who wins out of that situation? Well, certainly
The
not
lawyers.
the client. The lawyers. The lawyers were winning. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at their bills and I'm going, that's a lot of money for what could have been avoided right at the beginning. But also, it's a lot of money for the amount of capital available to us. Something's got to change. So what's going to get missing? And so that piece of the pie was missing. So there's cracks starting to fall. We've got people disagreeing. We found out there's some legal issues because the structure hadn't been set up correctly in the right order. There's some accountability going astray, arguments about who's responsible for what. And then we find out we're bringing in more people because we need to increase this sales force. And that's great. Okay, yeah, you need to make sales in a new company. You need to make sales. But they didn't have the product ready to sell. The product wasn't ready to sell, but they'd already committed to hiring these additional people. And guess what? They'd actually given them contracts. So they had signed contracts with these new salespeople.
So the new salespeople had contracts, but the original team didn't.
The original team didn't. And there's a lot of, I guess, frustration. And then that, the blame starts to escalate. Okay, who's responsible here? Or why isn't this happening? You're not doing this fast enough because you're spending your time doing this and you've promised this to this people. The blame starts to escalate significantly. It wasn't before too long that the fingers started, the attention started turning to me and going, well, hang on, you're the money guy. You're the accountant. And I'm going, yes, I am. But I can't make it appear out of nowhere. Okay, you've got a limited source of funds. Do you understand that? You're a limited source of funds, but so far you've promised the world to everybody, 5 times what we've got available, and you haven't sold a single product yet. Yeah, in fact, you don't even have the product to sell. So why have you run ahead and done all of this?
So question, this realization clearly didn't happen overnight. Like it was like piece by piece as you open your eyes to what was happening. As you realized it, did you make this clear to the CEO? And like someone had to be in charge?
I did very much so. But here's the other the CEO, okay, the guy that founded the company, the guy that came up with the idea, the knowledge behind the product that was being developed.
Yes.
Had appointed somebody else as pretty much, I guess, well, that person also thought they were the CEO. So we had two people believing they were the CEO of this company, both trying to make decisions.
So just let's dive into that for a minute. How does that happen? Like, how could that not be clear?
I look, from standing back, it was very clear to us who was actually the CEO. Right. But some of the promises being provided, some of the discussions that we weren't involved with, sort of positioned. And then what I've seen, and I have seen this multiple times since, and I'm probably more aware of it now, is where the second person involved, or the business partner, or maybe the junior business partner, goes to meetings but represents themselves to the customer as the CEO to make them feel more important, to give that perception that I'm actually the decision maker here. You should be dealing with me, not this other guy. And so we had a bit of that going on as well.
I see. I see. So there's the one person who's clearly the CEO, but there's, let's say, a junior partner type that had some amount of power, but to make himself feel like he had more power, he would represent himself as being
Yep.
more important than he was, which created tension and confusion.
Yeah. And so we've got the real CEO off doing his role. We've got the let's call him the pretend CEO. The
Oh my
pretend
God.
CEO physically located,
This is a
causing problems.
disaster.
Yeah, and he's causing problems with other team members. And then look, the other thing was they were developing a product, but they didn't have some of the. They skipping a few steps in the process of hiring and employees, and they were developing a product. And I remember they had an issue with one of the hires, and he just disappeared. He disappeared, and they couldn't find.
Someone was hired and then vanished.
They hired this employee, and he just stopped turning up. And we're going, well, where is he? And so they eventually tracked him down. So he decided not to come into the office, and he was doing some work on his laptop from his home. And I said,
look, from the beach.
Well, I don't know where he was, but it didn't sound that exotic. But I said, look, who's supervising him, and what does he have access to? And they go, oh, he has access to our source code, our product. I go, how have you not controlled this? So all of these steps and processes, it just that excitement of getting the sale, getting the product, getting the funding, they've skipped so many basic fundamental steps. No control over the employee. Fortunately, they were able to retrieve everything, so they didn't lose there. But very early on, most businesses go many years before they have that kind of issue with an employee. They had it within the first 3 months of operating. And of course, when an incident like that happens, who's to blame? The blame game starts to escalate within what was already becoming quite a fractured working environment. So the blame game escalates. Who was actually responsible for that? Is it the IT person, or the security person, or the risk person, or the GM, or the CEO? Who was actually responsible? And the blame game escalated, and I thought, well, hang on, we better get legal involved again. So yeah, more legal things. So a very look. No, I will say that everybody involved at the beginning was very well intentioned, nobody malicious. But it's very easy for when things start to go wrong for that behavior to change and those really strong relationships to disappear or to fracture very quickly. And unless there's some guideline, some framework established early on or before these things will happen, you can't write the rules as you're policing the brawl that's going on. You just can't do that. So it wasn't a great environment. So so not a really well. Look, it's probably you could do a textbook example of what not to do when you're starting a company. And you probably present that as a university course or a business course and say, here are all the things that could go wrong. And we go, yeah, but they're not going to happen. Well, they did happen. Pretty much every single one happened in this business. So I guess the other.
By the way, in the online security world, there's a security concept called the Swiss cheese model of security. Do you know that one?
No, please enlighten me.
The Swiss, so Swiss cheese, where you have like a slice of cheese that has holes in it. The Swiss cheese model of security is basically, here's the way you make a system secure. If you think about one slice of Swiss cheese as like a protective layer, but there'll be a hole in it. There's always a hole in your security. But if you line up different slices of Swiss cheese one after the other, the randomly placed holes on each slice are very unlikely to be on top of each other. So even if there's a hole here on the slice behind it, the hole will be somewhere else, so you'll always be covered. And it sounds like your story is an example of, well, if you have like 50 slices of Swiss cheese, there's like a 1 in a bazillion chance that all the holes line up at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of haphazard fixing, placing the layers of cheese on top to try and patch a hole, reactive. But you think, 50 layers of cheese, that's a lot of cheese. If you could do one layer correctly, you wouldn't need as much cheese. So, and it'd be much easier to manage. So it sort of got out of control very quickly. So not a great environment to be in. So getting back to me.
Yes, please.
So for me, okay, so I've got no employment contract. I've got nobody agreeing what my actual responsibilities are.
Had you actually been paid at this point? Or
No,
were you one of these people that just
no.
got
I haven't been paid
promises?
at this point either, because the decision was, well, is he an employee or is he providing services through his business? And they agreed, oh, well, no, he's providing services through his business, okay, just as a contracted CFO. Okay, well, I'm still waiting on licensing to come through, so I can't invoice through my business because it's not registered yet as an accountant. So still waiting there. So, but in the meantime, I'm paying my newly hired employees to run my new business, looking after other clients. So we've got less income coming in because my time's diverted
Distracted.
to this large client. I'm having to supervise a new employee, which is not always. Look, it's what you do, but when you're away from the office significant hours, significant days, trying to work for this other client, you're not supervising as well, so you're not training as well. And then of course you've got the cost. You're paying somebody full time, and they were based. Their hire was based on the assumption that we would have this larger injection of income from this client to really kickstart us along.
Which you're not getting.
No, and we didn't get it for a while. And then so the fractured environment continued and the hostilities started to escalate inside this client. And so the pretend CEO and the CEO had some disagreements on a few things, which included how much work was available for me, how much, and what I should be doing, and whether we really needed to have somebody providing that service, or whether we could just outsource this to a bookkeeper or an accountant, and just get less work actually done at a much lower rate. And unfortunately, the real CEO lost out on that argument, and they said, "Oh no, we want somebody independent of you," because I'd had the relationship with the CEO for many years as a client, but because of that relationship, they said, "No, we want somebody independent of you doing this work." So, so they said, "Well, right, thanks very much, but your work is cut back. You're only doing this small portion." So,
but by the way, I just want to make the interesting observation that the only reason you're willing to go so long without money and without a contract and a disaster situation is because you had a trusted relationship. But that's the exact thing that was used against you, because they said, no, we need a neutral outsider, not the trusted relationship. But if it weren't for the trusted relationship, you wouldn't have even done all that free work for so long.
Absolutely not. We wouldn't have even. We would have sort of like first week we haven't been paid. Sorry, we're not doing anything more until we get paid. But because of that trust of that relationship and knowing the way the revenue model worked, it was going to be very lumpy. So it was there, but it was a bit quite frustrating to think, well, hang on. One, we weren't getting paid straight away in a timely basis for the work that we were doing. And then all of a sudden that work just got pulled from under us and we came back to a very minimal thing side. But then the next side was, okay, help us interview your replacement. And I'm going, okay, I'll help. And I'll go, what kind of person are you expecting? And so they gave me the list of responsibilities. I'm going, yep, okay. We could still be doing that for you. I don't see how that's a problem, but they wanted somebody independent. I said, what's your budget? And I said, they said, oh, I think $1,000 a month. And I said, you're going to be paying at least $5,000 to $10,000 for somebody independent to do this work that you've described. And they go, oh no, we're not. Anyway, the first 3 interviews are all around that ballpark. So we're back to the position of, yeah, well, you don't have the funds to pay for that. We don't have the funds to pay for you because we spend it all on these salespeople that aren't actually making any sales, and we're running out of cash. So what do we do? What do we do? What should we do? We want your advice now. Okay. Fire everybody that's not contributing to sales, and get rid of the people that aren't producing any income, and stop spending money. Stop spending money and actually produce the product. Produce the product, make a sale. But again, that didn't sit well because there was a lot of other relationships.
By the way, I love your advice. There's an old saying that's mostly forgotten, but I use it all the time. I really like it, which is they used to say, when you're stuck at the bottom of a well, the first thing you do is you stop digging. And that's you're running out of money. Like the first thing you do is stop spending money.
Yep. It's all like, I'm digging my way out. Well, you're not. You're digging yourself further in. You're further in.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So look, once we got to that point, they didn't. Nobody wants to be told they're not doing their business well. Okay. Nobody wanted to be told that. So again, suddenly I'm the enemy here. I'm trying to tell them that what they're doing is not working, and they didn't want to hear that. So we've gone a lot of a full circle. By the way, we still haven't been paid at this point.
By the way, the whole story until now, how long has it been?
Well, probably about 3 or 4 months in.
3 or 4 months in. Okay.
Yeah. So I think I ended up getting paid after about 6 months, because there were a few other, I guess, issues with administration issues in terms of like, well, who has access to the bank account? Who can approve it? And they had a system where they organized people to have a responsibility to approve the bank account, and then they fired them a month later. So we had to go through the whole process again. So it took a long time for me to actually get paid. And then they appointed a new independent, chairman of the board. Okay. So he came in, appointed by the investors, and he's looked at it, and we had a bit of a frank discussion, and he said, look, that's just not good enough. We'll get you paid. We'll get this fixed up. What can you still do for us in the meantime?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, but really, it's probably the last thing you should be doing when you're setting up a business is doing work without a contract. Okay. That's just bad. Pinning your hopes on one big client, because like I said, the promise of a sale, it's not a sale, and a sale is not good unless the money's in the bank and you've made a profit. So a lot of things went wrong there. So, getting that scope agreed, what were we going to be doing, and making sure everybody knew before we started what we were doing, how we were going to get paid, what our rate was. So many things. And I think, look, it's easy for me to look back and say, hey, my mindset wasn't really there because I was in transition between 2 businesses. But, I should have known better. I should have known a lot better about this. So,
approximately how old were you at this time?
Oh, how old was I at this time? I would have been,
because the younger you are, the more excusable it is.
Probably about 42.
At 42, you should have known.
Yeah, I should have known. Well, 42, I should have known. Plus, that's what I advise people on. So, and look, there's a saying that the builder has the worst house in the street, and the architects never finish their house, and the plumber never fixes. He's always got the leaking toilet. But it's a harsh version.
The version of that I've always heard is that shoemaker's children go shoeless.
Yes. Yeah. So like I said, looking back on it, it's a lot of lessons to be learned and a lot of lessons to share. But what I've discovered is that I can keep sharing these lessons with clients, and people look at it and go, how is that possible? But it's something I'm seeing repeated and over in different businesses that I work with, different businesses I advise. See it regularly, and it's almost like people don't want to learn from other people's mistakes or experiences. They need to experience those mistakes and have their own horror stories before they can actually identify, well, that wasn't a great move. That wasn't the best thing for us. We should have done things better. But we don't like to listen to, particularly I think males over the age of 50 have a real problem with this. We don't like to be told that there's a better way to do things than our own way. And so learning from other people's mistakes, if you can do that, you're going to save yourself a lot of trouble, a lot of heartache, a lot of financial problems. So, yeah.
Sounds like an advertisement for Client Horror Stories. That's the point of the podcast. So
Yeah.
one question I have for you is, I'm intrigued by the fact that you're 42, because the whole story, I was in my mind imagining you as like this 25-year-old kid just starting out doing it, where like this would have been more explainable. But you being 42, really experienced and advising people on these issues, I'm curious for you to like be self-reflective. Like, what was going through? Why did you throw all your knowledge and wisdom that you knew very well out the window?
Look, I think we're probably back then. So we're looking at around, what's it, probably about 2015. Yeah, we probably weren't as overregulated as we are now as an industry. We can't seem to move these days without having to sign a piece of paper and provide a urine sample and a retina scan. So things were not quite as strict around engagements and contracts, and trust was a big thing. So when I'd been working with a client for 15 years,
right.
And you knew how they operated, and I thought, well, but when you take that person and you move them into another environment, and there's a lot of other influence, and as soon as you introduce a pile of money, things change. As soon as you introduce
and also when he's no longer the singular decision maker.
Yes. So that whole
Right.
thing changed. So I
Right.
probably didn't adjust my thinking, and like I said, I was in between two businesses. The business that I left on not great terms, significant falling out with the business partner I had at the time over a lot of things. So probably wasn't thinking straight. And I guess, like a lot of business owners, I'm thinking, right, I've got a base of revenue, but I need to grow it, and here's a great way to do it. And without thinking through, I guess, calmly and sensibly, just thinking, right, I've got to get this up and running quickly. Here's a fast track to it. And generally, if it smells too good to be true, it usually is too good to be true. And
one lesson hidden in all this is, it's interesting when they design malls. I'm from the US, you love malls, that in the classic model for the mall, there two at each end, there's a huge store, and then like lots of little stores in the middle. You have two anchor clients, because if one of them goes under, at least you have one huge client to pay the rent. So a good lesson here is make sure you have at least two anchor clients, not one.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I would say in a business as well, that no more than 30% of your revenue should come from one client. Yeah. But we see so many businesses, and I've seen like way too many, where they've relied so much on one client. So maybe 85% of their revenues come from one client. And particularly in the building and trades, that builder that they're contracting to has gone into liquidation. All of a sudden, they've lost 85-90% of their income. Even government contracts are not
Right.
reliable. Change of government, you could lose your contract pretty quickly. I've seen that happen as well. So yeah.
So, question: whatever happened to this company?
Well, it's still there. It's a public company.
Well, if it's still around in the public, they did something right. Like they didn't go
a lot
under.
of change of personnel. I would say that probably less than 5% of the original people are still there now. So a lot of change in personnel. I think what they've done is they've also diversified their revenue source, employed independently, got people with the right experience, right sales experience as well, and focused on actually creating a product and selling it, rather than everybody sort of managing their own little piece of, I guess,
turf.
real estate, turf their little shareholding and thinking, oh, this is great that we've got this public company and I've got a piece of the pie, but not actually doing the work to make it successful. So so it's still there. It's still there. But very
by the
different
way,
person.
a way I often characterize the difference between doing things in Washington, D.C. versus doing things in Silicon Valley is DC, in my experience, is everyone trying to make their share of the pie as big as possible, while the Silicon Valley way of thinking is, how do we make the pie bigger for everyone?
Yes.
And
Yep.
I'm very much a Silicon Valley guy. So these like fights on like your own turf and all that, like I can't stand. It's I think it makes much more sense to say, hey, how do you just make everyone rich?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something I'm seeing. So the accounting industry, particularly in Australia, has moved away from that very much. Okay, there's a limited value of clients to how can we actually make businesses work better, and let's work together and try and get the best result for business. So if a business is more profitable, there's more revenue to go around to everybody, and we've all got different skill sets. So let's work with each other and get the best result for our for clients, for business owners, and that's something that we're seeing a lot more of. And I think business owners are benefiting from it. But when we used to have that old traditional thing, and look, you saw it in traditional accounting firms, and I think legal firms and engineers are the same, is that you might have a partnership of 10 people, but they're then 10 little individual castles within the business fighting with each other. So like, oh no, I don't want you working on my client because that's my client, and I don't want you getting your finger in there because they'll start wanting to deal with you and I'll lose that revenue. So whereas now we've got more a collaboration, what's best for the client, and like you said, make a bigger pie. Everybody gets a bigger share. So yeah.
Okay. Wow. This was quite an adventure. I lots of issues all at the same time. It's the the phase of perfect storm, where just like all the different problems come together at once.
Yeah. Like wasn't just one thing. It was just that collection of calamity or collection of failure points in the process or lack of process completely, but a whole bunch of things that went together. Like you said, the perfect storm. Altogether, it's not a great environment, but we're on the other side of that now.
Although it's interestingly, I expected that you just end up by saying, the company went under, but dude, public's still around. There's an interesting lesson there that if you have good enough of a product vision, something, then you can survive all these disasters as well.
Yeah. Look, I think the other key thing there was they changed the personnel, they changed the direction, they changed their strategy. They identified that there were issues finally, and they took measures to mitigate that and move forward. And without that, though, they would have definitely gone under. Definitely. Yeah.
Better late than never.
Yep. But yes. But unfortunately, not everybody gets that chance. Not everybody gets that much time to fix things. So, yeah.
Paul, there's been so many interesting lessons here. I enjoyed the story. Thank you for showing up in your early morning and sharing this story for all of us.
You're welcome. It's been good to tell, and I'm not too emotionally scarred from reliving it. But it's good to get that out there, and hopefully somebody will learn from this story and not make the same mistakes.
No, I think there are a few important lessons, and to recount what I think are the two most important lessons, there's the one that we just mentioned that people often think is low Swiss cheese, low probability that all things go wrong, but the perfect storm does happen. So, and we can't forget that. And the other lesson I think is you're 42, the shoemaker's children go shoeless. That you need to be even when you're the expert, you need to be really careful on these things.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm actually 54 at the moment. I was 42 when all of this happened. So
what happened? Yeah. And But I think because I think part of the whole shoemakers children go shoeless phenomenon is when you're so good at something, it's kind of your instinct to just be relaxed about it. You're like, no, I do this all day long. I know how it goes. So I can see how psychologically you could let them go. Like I've seen marketers, because I'm a digital marketer. I've seen marketers be like, no, I don't know how to run ad campaigns. I'm so good. Yeah, it's fine. And then they just do it because they're so overconfident, they like do it in 2 seconds and don't put the love and care into it, and then the campaign goes terribly.
Yeah, yep. So many website people who make websites, great websites for other clients. They haven't updated their website in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, we see that a lot.
uh, exactly. So when you're the shoemaker, you need to doubly make sure that your own shoes are awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Paul, and everyone who's watched it until the end. Thank you for staying to the end, and we hope that you've enjoyed it as much as we've had recording it. Until next time.